What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Airflow podcast, where we manifest from identity, not security. I'm your host, Ricky Thomas, and I'm so grateful to be back again in part 5 of our series of Manifestation Rewritten. So today, we're going to confront something that almost everybody wrestles with, and that's guilt. So sit back. If you haven't watched the other 4 episodes, I would, and I say watch, we are available on YouTube, and I'm updating some of the things on our YouTube page. So follow us at Airflow on YouTube. But go to airflowpodcast.com, check out the first 4 episodes in this series. Again, it's a 10-part series. I think everybody is going to be blessed. I know I've been blessed, and it's been a tremendous help for me even to just go back and listen to some of this and take a look at some of the notes that I've written to create this podcast. A lot of times people, when they come out, especially with podcasts to motivate and inspire people, if it's not inspiring the person who's putting it out, then, it's a waste. And so everything, if anything, is going to inspire me. So again, excited about this. Again, this episode is called Guilt. And we're going to focus on, again, guilt as an acronym, as always. So, we'll get right into it, but just understand that, guilt, and we talk about guilt as guilt that you want more. And we should never feel guilty about wanting more in our lives. It's not that you're unappreciative. It's not that you lack any, sense of, gratefulness or anything, but you shouldn't have guilt to want to continue to expand and continue to grow. You should never have guilt that you're outgrowing the room. And you shouldn't feel guilt that you're asking God for overflow instead of survival. And that is very important when we think about what we go to God with. It's like we feel bad about asking for the overflow. We weren't built to survive. So here's the truth, it's not greedy to grow. It's really your inheritance. And we talk about airflow. That's the whole point of that it is never greedy to grow. It's part of the blessing of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that blessing that we became joint, when we became Christians, when we confessed and followed Christ, we became heirs, joint heir of the promise. So it's important to think through that and really set that as the foundation. So we'll go ahead and get started with we'll call it the guilt framework. And we'll get with the first letter, which is G. And G is get honest about where guilt comes from. In anything, if you think about any program to deal with addiction, or there's always that first step of acknowledging. Even through if you think about your confession of that you are a Christian and being saved, it's acknowledging that that Jesus is the Son of God. And I think it's very important to acknowledge and understand, where does that guilt come from? So you can't heal what you pretend isn't there. And you got to keep it real. If you want to deal with anything, you've got to be honest about where you are in it. And sometimes, and I'm just going to speak from a man's perspective, a lot of times we're just like, "Oh, we're good. I'm good." That's not going to fix the problem. And you can't heal from that. So when we think about where guilt really comes from, I look at it like, in kind of 3 buckets. You have your childhood conditioning. So a lot of times you'll hear, people say, don't be selfish. And so you have guilt about growing. And again, it's guilt from growing in abundance. And this is where, the full title of this episode is Guilt, which guilt is the acronym, but it's guilt-free abundance. It's not greedy to grow. So we go back to that childhood conditioning that we hear a lot of times, don't be selfish. And then from a religious standpoint, you always hear blessed are the poor. So people think, well, I'm supposed to be poor. That's how I'm going to be blessed. And then you kind of have that social programming that almost is a funnel from the others that says, who are you to have that? Why do you need that much? I'm sure a lot of us have heard people say, it doesn't take all that. Why do you need all that? Why don't you need all that? And again, it's not always, I try not to, and I want to make sure everybody understands that it's not about money all the time. Being an heir, yes, it comes with an abundance, but an overflow and an abundance mentality and an abundant life is you have more than enough. You have everything you need, not just for you, but for your family, for the kingdom. Enough love, enough money, enough time. That's the abundance to be able to live on purpose, to live out your gifts, because God gave you a gift not for you. Your gift will make way for you, but it's for others. So just understanding that is very important. And then, we think about guilt. And as I mentioned, you can't clear guilt if you won't admit it exists. And again, that is very key. You can't clear it if you won't admit it exists. You've got to understand that it's there, because sometimes those are those roadblocks that a lot of people don't understand, and that's where that self-sabotage kind of comes in. So that is the G for this, and it's get honest about where guilt comes from. The second letter in this framework is U, and U is understand that guilt is not good. Understand guilt is not God. There's nothing that God is going to do to make you feel guilty. That is not a characteristic of God. It's to make people feel guilty. A lot of us, I know, we've been around folks that use guilt as a weapon to try to encourage us to do something, or they use guilt to as leverage. Um, that ain't God. There's nothing about God in guilt. So if you feel guilty about anything, it's not that God is making you feel guilty because you may not have gotten up to go to church this morning. That's not a God thing. Or you feel guilty because you're living a good life. You're happy. And there's some people who feel guilty for being happy. They're in a great relationship and they feel guilty because they have a great relationship, and maybe somebody that they're connected to doesn't have that, and so they feel guilty. They feel like I can't express myself, my happiness, my joy in front of that person, because there's a feeling of guilt that they don't have that. That ain't God. Conviction lifts you. Guilt condemns you. And there is a difference, and we'll talk through it. So, guilt is not the same as conviction, and it's very important. Conviction is very specific, and it leads to transformation. So if you're convicted of something, that means that you've acknowledged that there's an area, there's a gap, and there's something that you need to fix. So you not getting up to go to church in the morning, nobody can make you feel guilty of that, or you shouldn't feel guilty. That's not a God thing. But there may be some conviction because you needed to hear a good word, or you needed to fellowship. And there's conviction in that. And so what is that going to drive you to do? That conviction will drive you to transform. And that's important. Guilt is usually vague. It's heavy and it's paralyzing. When people feel guilt, I mean, if you think about a lot of folks who have done things in their past, they will hold on to that, and it's like an anchor around your neck. It's like it holds you down. When you think you think you're in a good place, that guilt will pull you back, because you think about things that I've done, or you think about, well, the people I may leave. There's people who won't even leave their jobs because of the guilt of leaving their team behind when they have a great opportunity to grow in their career. And it's a very real thing. And it's tough. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's easy. It's not. But it's very important to understand that again, that ain't this guilt is not God. There's no condemnation for those in Christ. That is a scripture out of Romans chapter 8, verse 1. I repeat, there's no condemnation for those in Christ. So again, just to reiterate, guilt is not God. Conviction lifts you, guilt condemns you, and God is not condemning you. He's not making you feel guilty. And so that's going to lead us into the next letter in the framework, which is I. I is identify where you're self-sabotaging. And I've used that word self-sabotaging quite a bit. And, I have to step back, because sometimes I feel like where are those areas, or I ask myself, or I ask God, where are those areas in my life where I am self-sabotaging? Things that I may not even notice. And sometimes it can be subtle. It can be, words you say. It can be that thought of, even after you say something, like we talked about before, that you can say an affirmation, but in your mind you're thinking, yeah, but I'm saying I'm rich, I'm wealthy, but man, my bank account is terrible right now. You may not say it, but you're thinking it. It's a self-sabotage. If you're trying to manifest, and again, this is the manifestation series, right? So again, you manifest what you say, what you think, what you believe. So when your subconscious and conscious are matched together, great things will happen. When they're separated, well, great things will happen if they're combined, but that can be good or bad depending on what you're focused on. But if they're polar opposites, then that's the self-sabotage, and that's where you won't see things, and that things progress, and that's where frustration sets in. So, where are some areas that you may be self-sabotaging? Think about like undervaluing your services. What is it that you can do that seems so easy to you, but for others it's difficult? And you look at them like, man, why is this so hard? And people think you like, man, you're so good at this. Like, I wish I can do this. And you think, oh, they just trying to gas me up. Like, no, you're undervaluing what you can do and your ability to do that. Here's another one that a lot of people deal with. Over giving with nothing left for yourself. How many of us have done that? We give, but we don't take time for us. We don't take time out to refresh. We don't take time out to get ourselves back charged up. We pour into others. But see, you can't pour into somebody when you're empty. And so it's very important to make sure that that's an area of self-sabotage. Again, most famous example that's out there is on an airplane before takeoff, and they're going through the safety drill. What do they always say? If the air mask come down, safely secure yours, and then help those around you, small children, elderly, whatever. If those people that are having trouble, but secure yourself first. How many times do we do so much for everybody else that we take ourselves out of position and out of purpose because we don't take care of ourselves? We don't prioritize our healing, our rest, the things that we need to do. You can't cook for everybody and give everybody food and you're malnutrition, and then you start breaking down. That joy that you felt when you were doing the things that you were doing for others, that sense of purpose you had, now you're cutting that short because you're not focusing on you. Another way of self-sabotaging is avoiding visibility. Think about it. How many times do Do you just like, I don't even want to, people say, I just want to play the background. And again, this is not about being out front, but it just visibility of, anything. Like, I don't want people to see me. I don't want people to understand, who I am. And I don't want people um, I don't want people to look at me. I want people to know what I do. And there's one thing of being humble and meek, and that's cool. And this isn't about being, like bragging and things like that. That's not what visibility is. But it's more so of just understanding that I'm walking in my purpose and I'm not allowing myself to be unseen in that. Like, my purpose is my purpose. And when I'm walking in it, if I'm truly walking in it, there's going to be visibility in that in some way, shape, or form. And you can't avoid that. And then the other is it's interesting, but it happens, and it's rejecting opportunities. How many times have people rejected opportunities that have been clearly life changing, or opportunities that line up with what you've been believing for? But because of fear, because of guilt, again, guilt that you may be leaving coworkers that you've been working with for a while, or it may take you to another level, and you may have close friends or family members who may look at you like, oh, there he is, or there she is again, always got another job and making more money. And you're not even bragging, you're not even saying it, and you like, I don't even want to take this because what are people going to say? As I've always said, people are going to talk about you good or bad. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. I would rather them talk about me growing and seeing me, you know, gain opportunities and continue to move forward and all the things, because that's inspiration. I heard that somebody said that, hate is just misplaced inspiration or misguided information. I've heard it different ways. People hate on you. They really are inspired by you, but they just don't want to see it because it also puts a mirror in front of them that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. And so it's how they react. So to kind of summarize, I is identity. Identify where you're self-sabotaging. And one point to make out there is that guilt is the root of playing small. Guilt is the root of playing small. And playing small is really self-sabotaging. You're not meant to be small in this world. You were created as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, as an heir. You're supposed to be big. That's why you're supposed to dream big. You're supposed to think big. You're supposed to do big things. It's supposed to be things that are abnormal. You should be a walking miracle. Every day there should be something uncommon. People should look at you and say, there's just something different about you. They may call it weird. They may call it strange, whatever they call it. They should sense that about you. That's what an heir is about. So when we think about identifying where you're self-sabotaging, ask yourself, where are you shrinking because you feel you don't deserve more? That's an area that you definitely, that we all need to tackle. All right. So let's move on to L. And L is let yourself receive freely. I'll repeat that again. Let yourself receive freely. Sometimes it's one of the biggest ways to show guilt or to self-sabotage is you can't even receive from anybody. And this goes back to kind of giving until you have nothing left. You're over giving. You give, and you can't even receive because you feel like I'm not worthy, or I feel guilty to receive anything. Let me explain to you something. As an heir, abundance isn't a bribe. It's a birthright. I'll say that again. Abundance isn't a bribe. It's your birthright. It is your God-given birthright as an heir to have abundance. It is not your birthright to struggle to survive. That is not God's plan for our lives. Anybody that tells you that you have to struggle to be something, that you have to truly struggle, everybody, you got to get it out the mud. That's the backwards mentality. Now, there's hard work sometimes, but hard work doesn't mean physical toil. Hard work means pressing in prayer. Hard work means um asking God for guidance, and then God showing you the door, open the door, you walking through it. Abundance is pressing through in faith, or I'm sorry, it's pressing through in faith. That is the work that we have to do. It's not about that I've got to hustle. I got to do, all those words that are used, and people think, oh, they work really hard. That's how they got what they got. Is it because of you, or is it because of God? So it's important to understand that abundance isn't a bribe, it's your birthright. You got to let yourself, we have to, and I say we because my wife and I both struggle with that, with receiving anything. You got to receive freely. You don't have to prove you're worthy. And so many times we feel like in order to receive anything that we have to prove that we're worthy of something. And when you receive a blessing, that doesn't mean that you're taking from someone else. Because if we think that our blessings limits others, then we're basically saying that God has a limited supply, and he does not. So we got to always remember that just because you're blessed, and this goes for people when you start thinking about being envious or jealousy. If you're jealous of somebody else's success, then that means that you have no concept of God having an inexhaustible supply, because you think that, oh, they're getting all of this, ain't gonna be none for me. Like, no, that is not true. And there's nothing that you can find in the Bible that says that God will give to this group, and what he gives to this group will limit this person or limit that group. There is nothing that is out there that says that. If you find it, please let me know. I haven't seen it. And another point is, you can be grateful and still desire more. And this is an area for me, when we talk about self-sabotaging. It's like, okay, you got the job, or you got the promotion. This is just an example. And you're working it for a few years, maybe even a year, and you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. I'm already looking towards the next level. And people are like, man, you just got this job. You ain't been here a year. Okay. Doesn't mean I'm not grateful, but sometimes you don't want to think that way, like, oh, or you got a car and it's like, okay, I've had the car for 2 years. That newness is worn out, and you got your eyes on something else. And doesn't mean that you're going out right now to go get it. But it's like, oh, I can't desire more. Like, I got this thing, so that's it. Some people think about dream houses. You get your dream house, and you're like, this is it. But then you're like, well, I want to add this to the house, or I want to do this to the house, or, you may stay in the property, but you want to change it up. Like, what happened? Like, you're not grateful for what you have, and you'll let other people tell you that, like, man, you need to be grateful. You got that big old house and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. I'm grateful, but it don't mean I get to a place where I want more, or I see something different and I want to expand on it. There's nothing wrong with that. But when we limit ourselves to say, oh, you know what? I'm just gonna put my head down and just, I'm thank you, Lord. I appreciate it. And you're supposed to, you definitely have to be thankful and appreciative of what you have. But again, God doesn't have a limit. If you desire it and you do everything to manifest it, he's gonna provide it for you. It's gonna show up. It's already there. It's already in you. It's just you have to go get it. But we can be our own, people know about cars. We can be our own governors in that situation. We can limit ourselves. We can go over 125 miles an hour, 130 miles an hour. And please don't do that. I'm just saying from a governor's perspective, but we put a limiter on ourselves. Okay. So here's an affirmation that I want everybody to say. I can honor what I have and believe for more. Again, I can honor what I have and believe for more. And it's okay. You can be grateful and appreciative for everything and still want more. You can be grateful for your spouse and still in your marriage and still want to go to another place. That doesn't mean that you're not appreciative of the person, but you want to continue to grow together. What other ways can we grow? How can we make our relationship better? That's the sign of a healthy marriage. How do we grow together? I can honor what I have and believe for more. All right. And the last point, the last piece of this framework is T. T is transform guilt into gratitude and growth. Transform guilt into gratitude and growth. Guilt into gratitude and growth. What you transform, you outgrow. And that's just evolution. As you continue to transform from something, you grow from that thing. You're supposed to grow. A plant that starts in a small pot continues to grow, they can outgrow that pot. And you got to put them in a bigger pot to the point where you got to plant them outside because they need more, they require more to continue to grow. But if you keep them in that pot and you keep their roots there, it will limit their growth. That's kind of how we are. So guilt can be healed by replacing it with, and there's three things. We kind of talked about it, but gratitude, generosity, and growth. Guilt can be healed by replacing it with gratitude, generosity, and growth. Gratitude is thank you for this blessing. Generosity is I share what overflows. And let's not skip over I share what overflows. When you're in a posture of giving, you automatically have a posture to receive. You should, but by self-sabotaging and guilt, you close off that receiving part. That goes back to this whole generosity piece. I share what overflows. Well, if you're not keeping yourself full of the word, full of joy, full of happiness, if you're not staying full, then you're never going to overflow. And that overflow is what's meant for others. So what happens is you're cutting off through guilt and whatever else, you're cutting off receiving at the level, at the flow you're supposed to. You're starting to empty out more. And then you're not able to overflow to others. So now you're giving out of a deficit. That's not kingdom. When you give to the kingdom, it's never giving out of deficit. It's giving out of abundance, out of the abundance of your heart. And whatever you choose to give, there's one thing. But when you're living in overflow, you have a purpose and an assignment to give. And that's what keeps the flow going. And then growth. We talked about gratitude, generosity, and growth. Growth is I keep expanding. We should always desire to expand. And it doesn't have to be, I want the bigger house, the more expensive car. That could be it, but that's not what it's about. I want to expand as a person. I want to expand as a husband, as a father, as a son, as a brother. I want to expand as a business person. I want to expand Whatever area of my life I want to expand. I want to expand from a health perspective. I want to grow. See, when you become content is, there's nothing wrong with contentment, but contentment is for a moment. But we should never stop expanding. We should never stop growing. So transform that guilt into gratitude and growth. As I mentioned, guilt is healed by replacing it with gratitude, generosity, and growth. So here's something sort of a practical thing that we can do every time guilt comes up. So whenever you feel guilt about something, say, thank you for trying to keep me humble, but I choose to receive and grow. And you can be saying that to yourself. And again, there's nothing wrong with humility. And you should always stay grounded, but be grounded in good ground and fertile soil that's going to continue to help you grow. Don't be grounded in things that are going to stop you and stunt your growth. It's okay to go to grow and move out of the neighborhood that you used to be in. It's okay to move to a better subdivision, a better area. It's okay to want a better life for your kids. I'm not leaving you. I'm growing. But guess what? You can come visit. You can come see. I share this all the time, and I use this quote, and I think about it all the time. A great man told me, Apostle Amos L. Howard Sr. said that exposure expands your expectations. Sometimes you have to be the exposure for people. We have to be the flag bearers of what exposure is to get people to expand. Sometimes you have to be that person. Exposure expands your expectations. So again, whenever guilt comes up, just say, thank you for keeping me humble, but I choose to receive and grow. Don't allow yourself to stand back and just cut off being able to receive and cutting off being able to grow. Okay. So there's sort of practices that we can do. And it's a very easy thing to help us when we try to identify and understand guilt in our lives. First thing is name where you feel guilt. So we want to understand, where is it that we feel guilt in our lives. And then the second part is we've got to release the lie that says you have to stay small. You don't have to stay small. That's not a God-given directive. That is a you or your environment thing. The people around you, sometimes it can be a spouse, sometimes it can be, parents, it can be different people because they may not have the knowledge and exposure that you have. And I'm not saying don't love them, but don't take it that you have to stay small. No, you don't have to stay small. The third thing is affirm that it's safe for me to receive. Not only is it safe, but it's God to receive. Don't empty yourself to where you can't even take care of the things that you need to take care of for you because you're over giving. It's okay to receive. And then the last thing is to visualize yourself living in overflow without shame. It is okay to live the good life. It is okay to want nice things. It is okay to have a loving relationship. It's okay to love your spouse. It's okay to love your kids. It's okay to celebrate your kids getting good grades in school. It's okay if you want to post them on social media. It's okay. I used to see posts about people who put things out. They post their kids on social media because they got good grades and everything, and then you get people putting little memes and comments, not directly to the post, but in their feed, talking about, here we go, all these people talking about their kids again. Then when their kids start doing well, is that you see the post. I'm like, but you can locate where people are. Don't ever feel shame. Your kids doing well in school, that's overflow. You doing well and getting a promotion on your job, celebrate that. Don't feel shame. That's overflow. You receiving kudos or receiving recognition. Don't be ashamed to don't be ashamed to receive it. Embrace it. Because when you start embracing that, that's when it continues to flow to you. Never feel shame. So, last kind of point that I want to make with this, and this is I don't know if we want to call it an affirmation, but let's just say it's a mantra of some type. But say to yourself, I release guilt, I receive grace, I grow freely. Again, I release guilt, I receive grace, and I grow freely. I mean, it's self-explanatory. I'm not going to feel guilty about things anymore. I've repented, I've apologized, I've moved on. And it may even be something you did wrong. But I released the feeling of I'm scared to do this because I don't want people to think, oh, he's trying to be big. Yeah, I'm trying to be big. I'm trying to grow. I've got a family. I got things I've got aspirations. I'm not going to stop aspiring to be better because of what people may think. I receive grace. Yes, grace is always needed. I tell some of my kids that all the time, like you got to give yourself grace. You so hard on things. You want to, you try to be perfect or you get mad if something, like give yourself some grace. You're doing a great job. Keep that moving. Keep that going. Then I grow freely. I'm okay to grow. It's safe for you to grow to be the person that you're purposed to be, and it's okay with that. So as we always do, challenges for this week. Or it can be this week, it can be today, whenever you're listening to this. Write down one area you felt guilty for wanting more in. One area that you felt guilty for wanting more. Reframe that guilt into gratitude. And then from there, if you feel comfortable, share it on IG at Airflow. It's air_flow, HEIR_flow. Share with me on IG, connect with me there. Or use the hashtag guilt-free abundance. Abundance should never feel guilty. Okay. So again, guilt doesn't make you humble, it makes you stuck. And that's a word for somebody today. Guilt doesn't make you humble, it makes you stuck. How many times have we been stuck in our lives? All right. So in our next episode, we're going to be talking about ACT, very simple. And it's aligned, consistent trust. Because we got to understand our manifestation isn't a one-time wish. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of trust. All right. So again, thank you all for listening. Please follow me on IG. We've updated the branding on IG and on our YouTube page. So we are now, Billionaire Flow is now changed. We are all aligned as Airflow. And so on IG, it's, as I mentioned, it's Instagram.com / at Air HEIR_flow, FLOW. YouTube is the Airflow. Billionaire Flow has been changed to Airflow. We've got a new logo, working on the apparel, the rebrand, and just getting through all that, but just excited about the transformation that's continuing to happen. It's all about, again, it's continuing to grow. As I mentioned before, billionaires sort of, I don't want to say it was the start, it was the foundation. And now Heir is taking it further. It's removing limitations. It's removing, some of the perception that it's all about money because of billionaire. And a billionaire was always more than money, but as an heir, it hits you more direct, where it's every aspect of our lives, truly. So thank you all. I want to sign off just saying, stay aligned, stay anchored, and keep flowing in everything that God has planned for your life. I love y'all.